Hello, Happy New Year. My name is Thomas Siskowski. I'm a new founder of Pareidolia. It's my startup. I started it roughly a year ago, come January 6th, January 10th, somewhere in there. Um, and I just want to give like a kind of snapshot looking back and I guess looking forward in a sense too. Um, you know, what's transpired, kind of the history here of I've taken the company so far, company so far, where I've taken it, where I plan to take it, and then along with a couple of other thoughts. So I have my own little notes here, right? So I'm just gonna run with this and see the journey here. So you're gonna have certain expectations for yourself, for your own career, for your own capital, for your own wealth, your social life, and things of that nature, where certain things won't be time working for you on your own timeline, working for you on your own capital base, capital expectation, returns. What is working for me, what is not working for me. And over the last, I guess not 18 months, but 18 months come end of September, I was working at my former job, and rather just not disclose it and go from there. And I was working this job I did not like. I wouldn't say I hated it, but you like the people around you, but you just don't like the actual labor itself, especially with certain former managers versus like my last manager was awesome, but the prior manager that I had before was atrocious, was terrible. So operationally, things might not work in order in how you frame things and how certain things should be more pragmatic, more realistic, more practical, and yet you're stuck behind with a antiquated system, antiquated ideology, thinking, thought process, right? The traditionalist or hegemony viewpoint doesn't always really have any value after a certain point where, let's say, expectation, learning time, or strategy, certain viewpoints, certain strategies, whatever you want to phrase it, mentalities, mindsets are a little too antiquated or backwards. And with that, it's not adaptive, especially with like workloads, workforce, and whatnot. And you can see this operationally if you start your own thing, or maybe in like you like call clubs and whatnot when it comes to like maintaining a treasury at a frat, for example. I would assume at a frat or in a club in this case. And so there's a lot of different skills and things you can yank around. You're essentially Frankensteining things as you go, at least as a brand new founder, as a brand new startup person. Coming from a Gen Z, I'm Gen Z, 25, and yeah, it's like these mentalities aren't really adaptive, and these attitudes could be a little antiquated, for lack of better terms, and it just doesn't work. And at least maybe for me, in my case, where like certain investment activity, where the stable route, especially with all of these other antagonistic systems and formats and just things going on in the world, feels like you're one of the men in the end times. I haven't read Nietzsche, but kind of conceptually, you're staring down at the abyss and it's staring back at you, and you have to be build out your own character, your own persona, your own figure, your own, I don't want to say Ubermensch because that has a certain ring to it. You can see chaos, or you can see like uncertainty, entropy, whatever in the foreseeable future, and you don't really know how to position yourself. And becoming a character kind of seems to be like adapting to the situation that'll happen. Seems to be kind of the narrative that I want to play into myself as a entrepreneur, along with hopefully other young men around my age. Now, I wouldn't say or recommend doing this. This is kind of your own journey. but just my sense there. So a certain situation is presented to you, and so in that case, I saw an exit. I was like, all right, cool. I'll try to stay apolitical. Trump had this offer where you could take severance. I was like, well, shoot, I can take severance and work on my company, and if while collecting, the rest of my paycheck through, when I would have been still contract prior to being full time. There's a whole deal. I was converted full time, and it's just like extraneous details that don't really matter for the sake of storytelling. So, I saw my exit. I took my exit, and it was worth it. I don't know now, like if I would have taken it. Looking back, I think I still would have, especially given the circumstances around February, where drop of a pen felt like you were enemy number one under a certain manager. But so you're given a situation, and you kind of adapt, apply, whatever. Where should I go? You have like short-term, limited details, right? This is something I really like, decision making without like the complete picture. And so with that, I was presented this opportunity, this situation. I'm just gonna take it. Ended up being kind of a silver tongued deal where it ends up being okay. You're gonna have to wait till May, and then the thing was still on the table, but yet whatever. It was weird. But with that, certain situations you're presented and you have to work around and adapt and overcome. There's something that I believe I talked about briefly on a prior video where, I have the belief in American ingenuity. It's a shame that corporate types, HR, whatever, the powers that be don't really capture talent, whether they're, let's say, untrained or unsophisticated within a certain skill set, or with a certain skill set, with or without a certain skill set, but they have the mentality to overcome and achieve. Whereas, I don't know, it seems like certifications or this or that or some arbitrary metric is measured and cared more about than someone that wants to bring you money. Like it seems pretty arbitrary, and my viewpoint was more, I think work-wise, I'm very traditionalist, right? I want what kind of was the standard in the 1950s and 60s. I wanted, let me put it that way, wanted a pension, wanted a salary, wanted this, wanted that, and just give me a reasonable cut, reasonable pay, reasonable benefits, whatever, and go from there. And I don't know, there's some level of meritocracy and classism that can play into some of that mentality where it's like, working where I was working, I don't believe some people deserve those jobs. It just seemed like a handout. And it was for me. I will not deny that. But when you're in a position where it just seems like you're unhireable, even though you have the skill set, the mentality, the ingenuity, it's like, where's the value capture? No one's capturing my value. I might as well have a monopoly on my own talent. So, I don't know. You have to build out some, story. In my case, it's kind of like a survival instinct and the need to overcome a challenge that, seems like an intangible, mirage, like an oasis in the desert, right? This thing that I want seems to not be in reach whatsoever. But then, ironically, if you're in a position of power, luck, resources, principle, privilege, whatever, I don't really care how you phrase it, you can build out your own dream job, your dream company, whatever, and kind of institute the culture, the ideas that you want from the business society, corporate society, downstream. So there's kind of situation analysis, and then leaning into environment. Now, granted, I'm 25. I live with my parents. I've been paying rent while I was working. Liquidity is going to be very, very tight assuming you don't have a stable income. I've been fortunate enough to learn how to become a trader and kind of replicate an income stream, but this year will be the actual live fire testing of that, where I'm yanking out half of my asset base into funding my own liquidity, along with funding more into my company, and at least that's kind of where things are leading right now. And so this could be X amount, right? I'm pretty transparent. I think the number is like roughly 100 grand, yanking out like 40 or 50, and I know a chunk of that I'm gonna have sitting aside for, this is gonna be treasury management kind of skill set and breakdown, but you have a chunk that you expect, okay, I believe I'm gonna have to pay X in taxes, I'm gonna have that set aside. I need some level of burn, I'm gonna have that aside with this. I'm gonna throw this in my HYSA, high yield savings. If you don't have one, you should probably have one if you're a Gen Zer. You're gonna make interest income technically, but I mean the whole tax situation is up to you. Like it's too broad to discuss, I think, when everything's so personalized nowadays, and different people's advice is gonna be so like redundant to your own personal situation. So I have this liquidity challenge, and then I'm just like trying to overcome this to fund my own company, to fund burn, to fund potential tax burden. You're gonna juggle a shit ton of stuff. Pardon my French. And it just kind of depends. Everything depends. And I think the mentality I may have fallen back into was kind of this weird like work from home. I wouldn't say COVID. I go to the gym like every day almost, or every other day, 4 times a week. I'm trying to get back into 5 times. I had a deal, and I think the attitude or the feeling is like you're reverting into some weird type of the best thing I guess could be as an analogy would be like homeschool. So you're like a homeschool kind of guy, and you're like, all right, I need to figure out how to socialize again. I need to figure out how to do these things, but I am capital constrained. How do I make this work? And I guess that's the challenge, especially as a startup person. It's just like you seem to expect what I expect more for myself. I have high expectations. I've scaled up a bunch of stuff, a lot of my own personal funds for the last 5 years. So, it's like I need a little more juice. I need to accelerate this thing. I need exponential growth. And that's where I'm at, like just environment, situation, overall. And then here's part 2, where I kind of want to go into like road mapping. So I guess I'll break the video down in half or whatever. I don't really know YouTube Studio, but I'm gonna have like the first half of this be kind of the first chunk, and then the second half be this other topic, and then ramble on here. So with that, mental modeling and road mapping. So with that like idea where, okay, I feel like I'm getting into this weird homeschool type of feeling or sentiment. I'm not antisocial. I'm just very in my own lane, I think, right now. I'm a social person. It's just kind of like trying to break out of that as someone that is somewhat of a social butterfly, depending on, certain circumstances. So, with that was my co-founder, or my founding partner. So with that, you have road mapping, and with this, let's say I want to get back into statistics. So, where do I think that would be? Trying to start from the end point and then reverse engineering your start point. This is something I think I remember hearing from Munger, but I don't quite remember the video or the interview. So it's like, okay, I want to improve stats. So what do I do to improve my statistics analysis and like viewpoint skills. Oh, I should probably go through a handful of lectures or whatever. And then that feeds into doing analysis on your own trades. Let's lead into you learning more stats. Let's lead into you learning probability, most likely. And then going back to lectures, and then you kind of have some weird flow chart. And that's just that case. And then, like, on top of that, there's other skills I want to pick up, like learn another language, or I want to read more. I got like a collection of 26 books for Christmas. And lean back into this kind of mentality where maybe I want to be more of a Renaissance man. I don't think this mentality of like intellect in a cage is really beneficial, and I don't know. I don't believe in status quo anymore because like it hasn't benefited me. So what's the point of like honoring it, even as someone that believes in reasonable values, reasonable attitudes, and being very sensible. Not necessarily in like over empathetic way, but like rationally. I was like, all right, this doesn't make sense. Why would I want to do that? But that could also be like part of your testosterone or your like man brain, or you're like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Pardon the French again. Why would I do that? And maybe there's some level of rational skepticism because of college. I'm trying to erode that away and just kind of do things, because there seems to be this weird sentiment within Gen Z where we're a bunch of nihilists and whiny and we don't really do anything. Meanwhile, you could just book the trade, tie up X amount of $1,000 and kind of move on to the next thing, or start analyzing the next investment or whatever. I know I'm catering this towards investing and trading, but that's kind of the direction of my company and my own personal income. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. I know I may have been a little arrogant here at the end, but that's just part of my journey, trying to contain that, where sometimes you just need to be a sophisticated brute, while also being very have some level of courtesy or sophistication, or how do I describe this, like well spoken. You have to be well spoken, but at the same time, if you start cussing all the time, no one's gonna believe anything you say. And people want results. They don't really care about the character. I think they don't really care about the character or the person. We're kind of all, unfortunately, it seems like we're being pushed into either falling in line into some sort of rubric, or becoming as individualized as possible when it comes to persona and attitudes and whatever types of mentalities going forward. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below, ring the bell, and continue watching, because I know there's more to come. Happy New Year. Bye-bye.